Good morning, everyone. And I will call the Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting will call to order. So the first thing we will do is have a roll call by the clerk, and we did get regrets from Councillor Clark, and he's having some eye issues, so we're hoping, wishing him well. So go ahead, Mallory, if you may.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kennedy?
Here.
Councillor McKechnie?
Yeah, Councillor.
Did you say it? Councillor McKechnie? Well, we might have some sound issues in there, so we might have to send someone.
Yeah, we'll just go check on that. Okay.
Councillor Smith?
Here.
Councillor Wood Roberts?
Present.
Mayor Roberts?
And present. So we're just going to go check Walt is in an office, and just to make sure that you can you hear Walt? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I had it muted.
There we go.
There we go. Perfect. Present.
So we're all present.
Couldn't hear it.
Okay, so that's the first thing, a call to order. And I know we don't have mayor message or anything at this time, but I just want to remind everybody tomorrow is Remembrance Day. And while we're not able to have our traditional parade and service tomorrow, I encourage you to watch our local branch here, Branch 129 will be doing a live stream viewing. And I encourage you to watch that online if you can tomorrow. So next we need an adoption of the agenda. So I'll need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Wood Roberts and Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that the agenda for Dysart et al. Committee of the Whole meeting held on November 10th, 2020 be approved as presented. All in favor? And that is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof?
Okay, I found this on the web, so is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
So,
or general
excuse
nature
me.
thereof? Check it out.
I don't know if you can hear that, but my iPad is talking to me, so how do I take that off? Excuse me while I pass that over, otherwise it's going to repeat everything I say. Siri or somebody's talking to me. Apologize. Next, we'll need a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes from our previous meeting. Mover seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Kennedy and Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that the October 13th, 2020 Committee of the Whole minutes be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Okay. So the first thing we're going to go into is planning and land information. So we'll bring forward Jeff Isles, Director of Planning. I think it's fine. I just had Siri on. That would be funny. She has a very pleasant voice though. So we'll just wait for a laugh. And here comes Jeff into the meeting, and good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So the first item is the Snowmobile Trail Land Use Agreement. So I'm just going to let you bring us up to date on that, and we can then discuss.
Yes, thank you. And just to give you a quick background, the Snowmobile Association has submitted to the municipality a request to use an existing trail under the jurisdiction of the municipality, but actually located on the lands of Sir Sanford Fleming College for the purpose of a snowmobile trail. At their meeting on October 27th, Council directed staff to forward the Snowmobile Association's comments to the municipal solicitor. Staff have done that, and staff have attached to the report today updated comments from the municipal solicitor. Staff have also provided council with comments from the municipality's insurance provider, just to give them a bit more information on this file. And staff request direction from council how to proceed on this. There's two things we're actually looking for. We're requesting direction how to proceed with the request specifically for the trail located on the lands of the college, but also we're requesting direction from council whether to use the agreement provided by the Snowmobile Association for future agreements, such as a master agreement for all the trails located on municipal lands.
Thank you, Jeff. And so in the resolution that we had included in our package, there were a couple of options, and the first option, we'll call it, it says that it basically recommends council that we direct staff to continue to work with the Snowmobile and the Club of Haliburton and also the Ontario Federation. I'm not sure why we would continue. I think we're very close. So I just want to hear from councillors which option they have looked at all the information and which resolution that they would support. Councillor Smith.
Well, I was prepared to support and move the first resolution here that staff continue to work with the association. Your comment that we're very close, I'm not quite understanding that. The direction from our solicitor and from our insurance company highlights the risk of the language that's been proposed by the Snowmobile Association. And so unless you've got some other news, I'd be prepared to move the first option here, but I think there's still work to do.
Okay. I believe Deputy Mayor Kennedy, you had some comment?
Yeah, I somewhat I agree a little bit with John, but I think we're at the point where we do need to move this file forward. So the arguments put forward by the lawyer, quite frankly, I thought were kind of weak. They speak to what if somebody got hit by a tree on a walking on that trail. What would happen if we didn't have a snowmobile agreement? If it was just our trail, the same thing, we would be responsible to take it, or the college. And I'm afraid of what the larger implications of that language and those questions have with dealing with our memorandum of agreement with all our trails for the trails that cross municipal land. I'm really torn here. I would really like to support option 2 and move on, and just get on with things here. That's where I'm at right now. On the insurance comments about, it didn't look to be that much to make some additions, but I know that the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs has said no changes to that agreement can be made for specific or municipalities or landowners. And I understand their position, because one agreement for the whole province is probably quite necessary for their insurance providers. But I don't know if going back and talking more and more about this is actually going to move the file forward or not at this point. So I'd be prepared to support option 2.
I think that's my concern. I didn't mean that we were necessarily very close. It's just that if we direct our staff, I don't know what difference we're going to make at this point. And my concern is that we'd end up being well into December with no agreement. So we do not want to see what happened last year and have this, all the, excuse me, snowmobile traffic go, not be able to go through the college area. So it is up to us to make a decision today, whether we do opt that option 1 or option 2. Is there any other comments? Again, from Councillor Smith and then Councillor Wood Roberts.
Well, you know, our insurance company has proposed some alternative language. They've highlighted in their letter the risk of premium increases if there are claims under the you know, the language that's been proposed by the Snowmobile Association, which is characterized by both the insurance company and our expert lawyer as amendments that are friendly to those organizations. Unfriendly towards the municipality and our taxpayers. You know, I think we obviously are supportive of snowmobiling, and it you know, is an important recreational activity in our area. But when I look to the words of those 2 experts in terms of contract interpretation and allocation of risk, it's hard to kind of set that aside. In terms of December, well, we have a council meeting coming up in 2 weeks, and for us to signal to the snowmobile associations there are going to need to be changes. There's 2 weeks between now and that council meeting to hear back. And I'd also ask staff to look at what other communities are doing. We can't be the only community that has expert legal advice and insurance companies that are warning us, cautioning us that changes are required. And so how are other communities dealing with the changes that actually were initiated not by the local association, but by the provincial association? Be curious to hear. We can't be the only ones there.
Okay.
So again, I'm saying let's simply receive it, direct staff today to continue to work with the association, and report back at the council meeting.
Okay, so I next have Councillor Wood Roberts, then Deputy Mayor Kennedy, then Councillor McKechnie. Go ahead.
Well, I have tendency to agree with Pat. The Provincial Snowmobile Association can't, do separate things for every area, but our downtown 100% relies on the economic support that the Snowmobile Association brings to our village. So I would like to move it forward as well, but I know Pat had another thought, and he's been very involved with this, and I really appreciate that at a personal level and on behalf of the BIA for his involvement and his hard work to get these things resolved.
Okay, so that's for option 2. Deputy Mayor Kennedy, and then Councillor McKechnie.
If we were to withdraw the agreement in total, when I read your preamble and your history of this file, it indicates that the lands that were given to Fleming recognize the municipality has a trail system across that land. So is that a multi-use year-round access to the public?
Are you referring to the 2000 agreement, Pat?
2003, where you say the subject lands were conveyed to Fleming College. The municipality entered into an agreement which recognized the existence of trails. So is that multi-use year-round? If we didn't have an agreement in place and we didn't allow the Snowmobile Club to groom that or maintain it, snowmobiles could still use it then, even without an agreement in place.
So what the 2003 agreement does is, you're right, when we conveyed the land to the college, there was provisions put in that agreement that recognized those existing trails and gave the municipality jurisdiction and the responsibility for maintenance over those trails. What that agreement also did, it said it had a clause that gave the municipality the authorization to enter into further agreements to give other organizations the ability to use those trails, which was why that 2007 agreement was put in place between the Snowmobile Association and the college and the municipality.
So if we just withdrew the agreement, it would just be a wide open multi-use trail, open to anybody.
The 2003 agreement, I think if we withdrew that, we would not.
Right now. If we tore up the one right now, it will revert back to the 2003 original agreement. Is that correct? Or?
That's a good question. I don't think the Snowmobile Association would have the authority to use that trail and groom that trail.
No, they wouldn't groom it. But, no, we wouldn't. I wouldn't ask them to groom it or maintain it. It just becomes what's our agreement with the cross country ski club? Do we have one in place with them? Because this has implications with all our user groups. Whatever agreement we come to, that what the municipality is going to allow on our lands, this is a lot bigger than just snowmobiles. It's hiking. It's everything. Cross country biking or whatever, mountain biking if there's an association. So we have to be careful and so our insurance covers us on liability for the public on our property. If we didn't have an exclusive use agreement with the Snowmobile Association, if it was just wide open, our liability insurance would cover anybody that got hurt on that open trail. Or open access. Is that?
But Councillor or Deputy Mayor Kennedy, I think part of the snowmobile club wants exclusive use in the winter time. They
Yeah.
don't want, you know, me to take my grandkids tobogganing on the snowmobile trail. They have exclusive use on the rail trail for the time when there is snow on the trail. And for that very reason, otherwise, then you'd say, oh, well, I can go snowshoeing on that trail and I can go tobogganing on that because look, it's all nicely packed down and then it's not safe. The snowmobile club has to have exclusive use of that trail. We separate the snowshoe trail. And in terms of general use in say, something like, you know, Glebe Park and those surrounding areas.
Totally agree, Madam Mayor, and my point is that if the tree fell on the rail trail and hit somebody snowshoeing or walking on it, that's exactly the same position. It's an exclusive use agreement. Anybody that's not a snowmobiler is trespassing. That isn't a licensed snowmobiler with a pass.
Yeah.
So it's a big question, and it's been a long time trying to get this developed, and it's not from lack of trying on both sides, both parties. It's modernization at the provincial level of a bunch of different land use agreements that have expired or were not signed or not up to date. And it's the new world we live in with liability concerns. So at some point, I think we have to accept that as a municipality, there's an inherent in everything we do. And that's insurance companies aren't here to protect us or protect their shareholders, in my opinion. And by deferring liability to somebody else. So anyways, I appreciate what Councillor Smith is coming from. And but I still like to move this file forward. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, fair enough. And Councillor McKechnie.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to move the file forward.
Okay. So that would be option 2. So I would then, we've heard from just about everybody. So I would need a mover and a seconder. So moved by Councillor McKechnie. And a seconder by the Deputy Mayor Kennedy. So I'll read it as follows. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledge receipt of a staff report pertaining to trail use agreements with the Haliburton County Snowmobile Association and the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs dated November 4th, 2020. And further, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approve in principle the execution of a Memorandum of Understanding, Land Use Permission Agreement with the Haliburton County Snowmobile Association for part of Lot 15, Concession 9, Geographic Township of Dysart, Municipality of Dysart et al. The Mayor and Clerk will execute the MOU and LUP upon execution by the said clubs and Sir Sanford Fleming College. And further, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council direct staff to use, so I'll read it to there. Did the mover and seconder want to continue? And further, that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council direct staff to use the HCSA and OFSC Memorandum of Understanding and Land Use Permission Agreement for further agreements with the HCSA, including the Master Agreement. Is the mover and seconder happy with what I've read out? And if so, then I will take a vote. All in favor? Councillor Smith? Councillor Smith is still commenting on it before I vote.
Just a question. The draft agreement that has been put forward by the Snowmobile Association, the Haliburton Snowmobile Association, doesn't have dates filled in terms of validity. Are we? What term are we looking at committing to in terms of this taking on this increased risk?
Jeff, can you speak to that?
And there is no, Mr. Smith is correct, there is no date on this. So, and I think that was one of the comments our solicitor made, that it should have a time frame associated with it. So we could, it sounds like it's going to be until that master agreement's put in place, which then will be for all snowmobile trails located on municipal property. Yeah, there isn't a date, so it seems like it would be forever, such as most of the previous agreements that we've gotten into with the Snowmobile Association.
Well, if I might ask, I mean, I don't support this, but if you are going to go ahead and take on this increased degree of risk, we shouldn't do it on an indefinite basis. Maybe it would make sense to do it for the upcoming season, the 2021 snowmobile season, and assess, after that what has happened, and whether we want to continue to bear this increased amount of risk. I've got a chance to assess any incidents, the impact on our insurance premiums, and all the rest of it.
Go ahead, Mallory.
Since the committee of the whole is recommending in principle here, perhaps we could establish a timeline and bring it back to council just to show where that timeline is.
That's correct. So this still comes back to council in 2 weeks. That's a great idea. The mover and seconder happy with that? And I agree with Councillor Smith, we should have something in there. I don't know, maybe longer than a year, but certainly something. Okay, so I did read the resolution. I'm not going to read it again because I get a little tongue-tied. And I will ask for those in favor. And those opposed? That carries. Okay, good conversation. These things are getting more and more complicated as we live in a more and more litigious world. And so they don't make things easy. So next up, we have some discussion on the student housing project with Fleming College.
Yes, thank you. And this is just a bit of an update for council, as well as a couple of resolutions that have been provided just for some direction for staff. So at their October 27th council meeting, council passed a resolution supporting in principle a change of property line in Glebe Park to accommodate a student housing residence. Staff have since met with the representatives from the college and had preliminary discussions about the development proposal. And staff have requested that they provide a detailed proposal showing the location of the building, the size of the building, the proposed uses for the building. So things seem to be moving forward on both sides. But prior to this project moving forward, there are a couple outstanding items that need to be addressed. First, the college will be required to submit applications or permits on behalf of the municipality for that portion of land that will be conveyed. So staff are recommending a resolution that the municipality authorize the college to act as an agent for the municipality for submitting applications and permits related to this development on our that piece of land that is to be conveyed. Staff are further requesting, and I should back up. So the site plan control bylaw notes that public uses by public bodies are exempt from site plan control. So this development is actually exempt from site plan control. There is a section in that policy that says that council may request site plan control as a condition of zoning bylaw amendment or a minor variance for developments of a certain scope. So staff are actually requesting direction from council whether they want to choose this option and request site plan control for this project. Lastly, the college, as they mentioned during the council meeting in October, would like to enter into a memo of understanding with council. So staff are just advising council that they may wish to consider certain matters related to the conveyance of the land, sewer connection, and staff request direction how to proceed with this memo of understanding. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, I think let's start with the site plan control issue. It is public lands, and while we may be exempt, it's going to be in a very prominent area and an area that's near and dear to people's hearts. So I don't know, what do we hear from pretty much every councillor possible? It doesn't mean that we're going to agree or disagree with what the college is doing, but it does give us a certain involvement with that. So Councillor Smith first, go ahead.
Well, I think that your comment's a very fair one, Mayor Roberts, that this is a piece of property that's very sensitive to many members of our community, and that the site plan control process would give us a chance to ensure there's good communication both ways, both by council to the residents and property owners, and a chance for those residents and property owners to communicate their feelings to us. And if we don't provide a good opportunity for that, I fear that we'll be accused by some. Could be a very small minority, but we could be accused by some of rushing ahead and doing something that was, against or in opposition with the view of many residents. And where I believe that, in all honesty, most residents will be very supportive of this, an open process, one that's receptive to input from the community, will be important in terms of ensuring that everyone has a fair view of it. So I'd very much support that we should retain site plan control and go through that process. I don't see that as holding this up. The college has got a long way to go in terms of getting the funding commitments and all the rest of the stuff. So they know we're interested and committed to this, but as I said, I think the public input process, site plan control would be an important step for us to engage in.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Anyone else want to comment? Should we retain Deputy Mayor Kennedy?
Yeah, I would support site plan control. I think it's important for the reasons that Councillor Smith has alluded to. So I agree, and yourself, Mayor Roberts.
Yeah, and it's not, as you said, Councillor Smith, it's not holding the college up in any way. They still have to enter into the water agreements. They still have to do all the different things, but it will give us a little bit of a partnership in land that we are, public land. It's not it is yours and mine, but it's everybody's as a resident of Dysart. So I think it just puts us in a partnership situation, and I don't see any benefit of waiving site plan control. So there's that direction. Okay, to Jeff. Then what was the other one? Enter into a memorandum of understanding. We can discuss at council, but there may be some things that are sensitive that may actually have to be discussed and closed when we get into some things. So, we want to keep this as open a process as possible, but there may be some, I think we all definitely they want a memorandum of understanding, and so do we. So if there's some things that any councillor want to speak to that issue. So the thought is, yes, we'll enter into one, but I think that there are going to be a couple things that have to still at this point stay in closed session. And we'll come out in open when the memorandum has been decided. And then lastly, that we permit the college to act as an agent. That means they are, working on site, and even though the land is not transferred to their name yet, and we haven't defined the lot lines, all of that is, it's sort of you can't define the lot lines till you know the size and scope of the building and how much additional parking, etc. And then we'll get those lot lines going. But I think it is definitely a great idea to have them have the authority to act on behalf of the municipality. It's going to be their project ultimately. So does anyone have an objection to that? Nope. Good. So I think everything is in the resolution. Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Pardon me.
Sorry, Mayor, and I just wanted to advise that I did not include a resolution for council to impose site plan control for this development. So it's something that we will have to write into the resolution right now.
Okay.
And I'm happy to help you with the wording for that.
Well, I can just add it in now and further that council retains the authority or right, or what's the word, for site plan control?
Yeah, and because we're in the committee of the whole, so we can just say and further that the committee of the whole recommended council.
Yep.
That site plan control be imposed as per section 4 of the site plan control bylaw.
Sorry for the pause here.
And while you're writing, I should probably clarify that with regards to the memo of understanding, the resolution that I recommended or provided for is to direct the college actually to prepare and submit a draft memo of understanding to the municipality for review and discussion. So if they do a bit of the work and submit that, then council will have the opportunity to review that draft memo of understanding with the representatives of the college.
Okay, but we can maybe give a little bit of direction of expectation of what should be in there, but they draw it up, we comment on it. Sorry, the last part I missed in the council impose site plan control and something, what bylaw? What?
As per section 4.
As per section 4.
Of the site plan control bylaw.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder for this, please. Deputy Mayor Kennedy and Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole received the student housing report for the lands of Sir Sandford Fleming College, Haliburton School of Art and Design, dated November 10th, 2020 for information. And further, that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that staff request that Sir Sandford Fleming College, Haliburton School of Art and Design prepare a memo of understanding to be submitted for review and discussion with Council. And further, that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council permit Sir Sandford Fleming College, Haliburton School of Art and Design to act as an agent on behalf of the municipality for the purpose of submitting applications and permits related to the development of a student housing building on municipally owned lands. Excuse me. And further, that Committee of the Whole recommends that Council impose site plan control as per section 4 of the site plan control bylaw. All in favor? Carried. Excuse me. I'm just going to go in my purse and reach for a little mint. Okay. Just a tickle. I'm thirsty. Okay. We'll move along into the fire department report, and Mike Giles is on some holidays, so he's not with us. So we've had the report included in our agenda. Any comments, questions? They've been busy. Okay, so we just need mover and seconder to receive the report. Councillor Wood Roberts and Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the October 2020 Fire Department report. All in favor? That is carried. Next, we'll move into Public Works, and we'll bring in our Director of Public Works. Who came in on his week of holidays for our council meeting. It's much appreciated. Yep, and also John Watson. Oh my gosh. Might have to get Mallory to read out the resolution. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm having a tickle, so I'm just going to say, take it away. Go.
Okay. So first on the docket here is the status update, and the comment I will make on this one is you'll notice that Sullivan Road was not surface treated this year. So when I spoke to the contractor about it, I happened to be out of town, so he did track me down, and they did run into a bout of wet weather. The only reason Sullivan did not get hard topped is because Dignan was prioritized ahead of it because of the hills in it. So had we not added Dignan Road to the schedule, Sullivan would have been done for sure. But it's been pulverized for several years. It's relatively flat. It's not going to hurt it to sit for a winter. We'll just include it in next year's program.
I hope the neighbors up there all get along and say, oh, our road didn't get done because yours did. But anyway, so that'll get transferred over to our work schedule for next year.
Yeah, and the weather did come back around, but unfortunately they quit making the product in the fall, and there's nothing out there to lay down anymore. So
This is not asphalt season. Who knew? that
it is not. No.
Be 20 degrees in November. I was glad to see the line painting got done on that section of Highland. I thought they might have missed that opportunity as well, but
It was close.
it was close. And we'd already done some salt and sand, so I thought, oh, how do they put paint on top of salt and sand?
Mm-hmm.
But they did. Okay, so just a mover seconder to receive the road status report. Mover seconder, Councillor Smith, Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges the November road status update. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next, we have the proposed gravel road classifications.
Yes, so this is another one of the many steps we've been taking towards our resurfacing program. So at our last meeting, I was given authorization to further break down our gravel roads. So I took a look at our network wide. I'm proposing seven different classes. You'll notice there's gravel number 1, which is anything with a weak subgrade. I'm proposing that we do not surface treat anything with what we deem to be a weak subgrade. Weak being relative. Most of our roads don't have great subgrades. Some are worse than others. And the example I give you there is Cranberry Lake Road. I'll pick on that one a little bit only because our CAO is very familiar with that road. But roads such as that, if you surface treat it, you're wasting your money. The road will not last, and you'll be into some maintenance costs, pretty significant costs relatively early in its life. So moving down, we propose that anything with less than 50 cars a day to not get surface treated. And then the rest of them I kind of broke down by the terrain and the speed. Low speed being less than 50 kilometers an hour operating, high speed being greater than 50 kilometers an hour. We can certainly tweak that if council wants those numbers changed. Again, high speed and low speed, very relative terms. Rolling terrain, rugged terrain, that is very subjective as well. That was assigned by staff based on our knowledge of the network. So you'll notice gravel 3, gravel 4, and gravel 5 have more than one available treatment. That was put in there solely based on funding in any given year. Just because it is eligible for surface treatment does not mean it will see surface treatment. It depends when it comes up in the program and available funds. So some of these could very well just keep seeing granularity applications every time it comes up in the program. But that's something we can always tweak moving ahead as well. So I'm not going to go through each one, but basically anything over 100 ADT, I'm proposing to get surface treatment as it comes up in the program. Again, council can override this program anytime they want. They can go off the board. They can insert or take away any road into the program as they see fit. So basically the graphs at the end of the report indicate that if we do set up the gravel roads in these classifications, we can meet our level of service. It'll take us a while to exceed that. 2024, we get up to a 66, but we can meet that. So we can tweak this. We can proceed with it as it is for a year, reevaluate. I will defer to council on that. And I'm also open to any other input that council may have.
Okay, well, thank you for this. And like you said, this is just, one more piece of the puzzle that we're putting together to look at our entire road network and how we deal with things. And there's just so many factors involved. It's not just a simple, that's a gravel road, it'll stay gravel, or that's a gravel road, it needs to be surface treated. There's things, like you say, rugged terrain and high speed. And so there'll be choices that council has to make over the next coming years. So let's open it up to the floor and see questions. Go ahead, Councillor McKechnie, you're first.
Yeah, not in regard to the gravel, just wondering where we're at with pothole fixing. exactly. I have quite a few concerns, as you know, Rob.
Ongoing. I can look into it, but I don't assign the pothole duties, so I can circle back on that if you like.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, Councillor Smith?
Thank you. Rob, just one quick thing I didn't notice until now. I guess I made an assumption about this. In your matrix there, let's look at gravel 3 as a category. Is that, I was assuming when I read this earlier that it was between 50 and 100 as the average annual daily traffic count. Your symbol there beside the 50, although you've moved it from one side to the other, it should actually point the other way, just as you did in gravel 7. You see what I mean? It should be greater than 50 and less than 100, I think is what you're saying there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So maybe
that's
for the
correct.
public record, just so if somebody else looks at this,
Yeah, that's a good catch.
you need to flip the signal there, the symbol beside the 50. The same way, pointing to the right, the same way the one of the
Okay.
average, right?
Yeah, it's not the first time I've done that.
It's not a big deal, and I hadn't even paid attention. I made an assumption, and just looking at it again now, I thought, oh, wait a second. Somebody else looks at it, they'll accuse us of misinterpreting the rules or whatever.
Okay.
We know what the intention.
We have the intent. Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I think again, it's a great step in terms of laying out what our intentions are, and as you note, we'll learn as we go along. I am sort of curious, on behalf of the CAO. You said that Cranberry Lake Road has a weak subgrade. What sort of investment would be required? There are a fair number of residents on Cranberry Lake Road. What sort of investment would be required to address the subgrade deficiencies, so that we could deal with that road in a better fashion in time? Not saying it would be a priority, but just for us to say it's got a weak subgrade, well, somebody could say, well, why don't you fix that? Because that could be done. It's just kind of understanding the scale of the investment. Not precise, but is roughly.
That I would have to get back to you on, because I don't want to underestimate what that road would cost. The thing it doesn't have going for it is it has a very high clay content in the subgrade, so you're going to be into full excavation to the bottom of the ditch line, essentially, for a certain length. It's not the entire road, certainly, but it's a good portion of the road. So that would take some more investigation, but it would be very pricey.
Which, yeah, I wouldn't spend too much time on that, because it's going to be challenging enough when we see, our choices. Now, we did sort of set a financial target for next year's budget. So Rob, when you add all this information together, the traffic counts, the recommendation on this gravel considerations, when you come to our first council meeting, will you be giving council sort of some choices or where to go, or and looking at 2021 and 2022 because it's still our term of council, sort of a holistic approach to?
Yeah, if you want to proceed with these gravel road classifications, I'll have basically enough information. I'm still waiting on traffic counts. I may have to pull the pin before those are completed. I'm not really sure what kind of an impact they will have at this point. But if I do have enough to bring something back to the next meeting of council, if you like. I will not edit what the program brings forward, but I will comment on what it spits out. And it will certainly spark some more conversation.
Okay, that's what I figured. So, Deputy Mayor Kennedy, go ahead.
Yeah, I like the good report, Rob. I like the idea of the annual review, because this is so new. I think you need the ability to tweak this as we move forward, as we get better data. Is there, in the gravel 7 classification, will the program put a priority on those roads that fit that and factor that into the next steps? Or is it just, I'm not too sure how those gravel 7s and even gravel 6 to a certain extent, how they will fit into the matrix. Any idea yet what that would look like? Because we've identified 7.
Well, basically the way it's set up is everything has an assessed value right now, a pavement condition, if you will, out of 100. And so basically the way I've set it up is once everything comes down to a 65, it will be considered. But it has to hit that 65. I'm not going to resurface something that's at an 80. It just doesn't make sense. But it depends on where those roads are now. And then it's the estimation of how long it takes to get to that 65, and then they'll be considered. But again, we could resurface any road at any given time as council sees fit.
You just we need to stress that then that it is at a 65 rating. It's not that's what we're laying that's what we're putting our faith in.
Yeah, 65. I'm trying to use 65 across the board just for consistency. We want our network to be a 65. So when these roads get down to 65, if we can get them back up again, then that would be ideal. We can't do that with every road, obviously. Funds are limited still. So.
And then there's always, Rob, you and I have talked, there's always the human factor. There may be a little spur of a 0.2 of a kilometer of road that goes off this way, and it isn't due for a couple of years, but you're already doing this section, and it makes sense. You've got equipment there, you've got stuff there. So it's not a perfect science. It's just going to tell us what to do. There's still going to be human choices and considerations to do when roads make sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and a perfect example is any roads in town within the village plot. Like, you really got to take a look at them. And there's been conversations about expanding the sewer line. So does it make sense to resurface a road if it's going to be torn up in 4 or 5 years to put a sewer line in? And I would say leave the road rough and do it all at the same time.
Yep, that's what I mean. The human factor, the information, that's only so much information can, like you said, you're not going to edit it, you're going to spit it out, but then there's the but.
Yep.
Okay, well, a great report, and slowly but surely we move forward. So I do need a mover seconder to receive. Councillor Smith, and seconded by Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges this report on proposed gravel road classifications, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that staff return with a detailed resurfacing report for consideration in the 2021 budget that considers the new gravel road classifications as outlined in this report. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for that. And next we have a speed sign request from a resident for the Fort Irwin Association.
Yeah, here we go again with issues of speeding. I'm not going to go through the whole recommendation here. But what I am recommending, if council does want to put a sign up there, that we put it further into the road where there are residences near the roadway. Where they were proposing, there's a 3-kilometer stretch of nothing. There's a landfill in there, that's about it. So, but I've taken it a step further, and it's no secret that speeding has become an issue. Certainly this year, it seems to have peaked this year. But every year we get 1 or more complaints or issues about speeding. And so what I'm proposing is, if I'm able to reach out to a traffic engineer, just throw some costs associated with this, look at our whole network. What do we need to do? What do they recommend? What's working in other areas? We're a very rural area. Traffic calming isn't really a thing. We have natural traffic calming with our tight corners and our steep hills and our brush at the edge of the road and that type of thing. So I'm just looking for input from people that do this for a living, because, well, we've talked about community safety zones and, signage and speed areas and where the buses run and they don't run, and, multi-use roadways with cyclists and pedestrians. We just don't have the resources in-house to break it down to a granular level, road by road. And I'm not saying we move ahead with it this year, but if we knew what it would cost to assess even a portion, if we zoned in on a portion of our road networks by ward, by area, however you really want to do it, I think we need to know really what the financial impacts would be on this, because we're talking huge, huge dollars. If, for instance, some roads Maybe some roads are better off at a higher speed. We don't know. Let's have the professionals do this, but there could be implications for signage, for line markings, any sorts of things, barrier. But until we assess the whole network, we have no idea what we're into, but I know it's going to be huge dollars.
Okay, I think it will be. The only thing is I know that the request that came in was from the Fort Irwin Residents Association, and their facility is far before that. And their concern was in the email that we received from Andy Black, was that there's no signage, so that was sort of there's nothing after Fort Irwin. And so by putting it at North Curry, technically people still they'll be still going by the Fort Irwin area or the what you call it, the fear of building, etc. at whatever speed they want, I suppose.
Well, in the summary there, or the background, so the 85th percentile speed, which is generally the operating speed of the road, is between 58 and 61. So if there's no houses on that 3 kilometer stretch, by default, it's an 80K zone. I would argue there's no speeding. But if you did want to lower it to 50, that would require a new bylaw and additional signage.
Because it doesn't meet the requirement for where a 50 is,
Yes.
that it's a built up area. Well, what do other councillors think? The recommendation is that the 50 kilometer sign be installed at or near the north intersection of Haliburton Lake Road and the north intersection of Curry Road. Councillor McKechnie, you want to weigh in on this? And then Councillor Smith? Councillor McKechnie, did you? Oh, sorry, you're on mute. Well, thank you.
So thank you. The people who drive the roads, like I drive Sir Sam's Road and drive every day, so we all know what the concerns are and watch people speed and that. And needless to say, Haliburton Lake Road has had a lot of concerns this year, and I think that we should try to accommodate them because they're the ones who are traveling the road every day and see the potential accidents that are happening on all our roads. So I just think that I know that there's a lot to do to just change the signs and put signs up. I know that's a big deal, but if it's going to save a life, I think we should be doing it. The people are asking for it, and I'd like to see us work with them. And I'd also like to see us, I don't know what the cost of them are, Rob. I know it's money, but the sign, like the radar, that detects how fast you're coming into a section. Like, what is the cost of those signs? Yeah.
I would say north of $5,000.
North of $5,000. I think it'd be great if we somehow put that in the next budget or the next couple years, because I really think that really gets people's attention. I know I'm just using myself as an example, and everybody's not the same as me, I understand, but it definitely gets my attention. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you. I was inclined to agree with Rob's approach here of putting the sign out about 3 kilometers, I think, as I recall, he said, from where it had been requested. And his rationale is that there are no residents in that area. And the problem is that it's not about the signage here, it's about the enforcement. And if people see a sign that says 50, it might cause them to slow down for a short distance, but then they see nothing in the area and they're inclined to just naturally speed up because there's nothing going on. Whereas if you place the sign up near the cluster of homes or residents there, and there's a 50 sign, that gets the attention and is more likely to have an impact in terms of the driving patterns, the speed that people are going. And this is an area of expertise for Rob. So as I said, my inclination is to support his recommendation there. As a follow-on point, I think that Councillor McKechnie's suggestion that we, at least at this stage when the budget is being brought together, that we get one of those radar detecting speed signs that the county has. I know I spoke with Craig Douglas at the county about those when he was locating it on some different roads in our community, and it has a dramatic impact. If I recall correctly, it was about 15 kilometers an hour that it caused traffic, the average traffic to slow by when they put it up, and they move it around. So it's not just, it's the $4,000 he said was the original cost. There is some staff time involved in relocating it, because after it sits in one place for a couple of weeks, it actually loses its impact. So you need to allow for that. But I'd sure be interested in understanding the total cost, not just the purchase, but what would be the impact on staff time of having to relocate it every couple of weeks, as something then that we could evaluate, because it certainly is a big improvement, as long as we're prepared to make the total investment, not just the one-time purchase. So, but I'd like to see that in the preliminary budget anyway, and we could go from there. But
Okay,
in terms of location, let's go with Rob's expertise. Is my view.
Okay, so the idea of a radar sign, I don't think Rob, we can bring it forward at our first budget meeting. But Rob can find out sort of what the different models are and what they cost. In this, we have, and I see you, Deputy Mayor Kennedy, next, but also that what Rob is proposing is that we further direct staff to engage a traffic engineer to propose appropriate speed limits, traffic calming measures, if any, and that sort of thing. So maybe why don't we leave it with that? Because I would say that one of those radar signs is maybe a traffic calming thing. It's not an enforceable thing. It's just a reminder, look how fast you're going, red flash. So why don't we just leave that in? So this is a recommendation to council. It's only for him to come back with prices for what a traffic engineer, as Rob said, it might cost us quite a bit. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor Kennedy, and then Rob.
Yeah, I just want to make further comment and support both Councillors McKechnie and Smith on the proposal looking at radar signs. I think it needs to be part of a bigger speeding and public awareness campaign for 2021 until such time as we get the report back from the consultant or the experts on what we're going to do with our road speeds. Our roads were never intended to be jogging paths or walking paths to begin with, but we have to realize that things are changing with COVID. A lot more people are here, a lot more people are walking. So we've got to move forward with some initiatives. I think a concerted effort between our lake associations, public service announcements on how to actually walk on our roads again. I see people walking on both sides of the road with earbuds in and not being able, and then all of a sudden they're shocked by traffic coming. I think there's a role for us to play. I think the traffic counters with the radar speed built into them, I think that Rob talked about, are going to help identify some trouble areas. The radar signs, if we move them around, are all part of it's doing what we can with what we have. And our roads are narrow, brush filled, no ditches, some ditches, blind corners. I think it's a part of it's the new awareness that we have. A lot of people are enjoying the Highlands of Halliburton, and we have to try and keep it as safe as we can. And any initiatives we can, like public service awareness campaigns, which radar signs may be part of it. Or I know Rob and I talked about, even hiring the OPP on private duty, $1,000 a day. We got trouble spots, put them in there for a day, and to get the Road Ranger program, which there's no sympathy. That goes a long ways too, but I hate to spend another $1,000 a day when we're paying $2 million a year. But anyways, I think it's come to a point that we have to be proactive on this. So I'd support any measures that staff can bring forward a program and take a look at. Maybe it's COVID expenses related. So,
Rob, did you want to comment any further on this?
I just want to get into an example if we do go through this, or go down this road. Councillor Smith, I'm going to go to West Shore. We've had several discussions on it on the front end of it. By default would be an 80. And once you get into the higher speeds, then you really got to watch for signage. You really got to watch for roadside barrier. You're going to be into line painting and that type of thing. So there's going to be an upfront cost to this program if we go ahead with it. But there's going to be annual maintenance costs too. Once you get into barriers, and whether it be 3 cable posts or steel beam is probably a dream for us. But it's all stuff you gotta document. You gotta have part of your inventory, and you have to patrol and stay on top of it. So it is going to be increased staff time for sure.
So is generally overall the resolution as it reads, which does permit a 50-kilometer sign, but at the location recommended by staff, not by the request. But, and then further, so do I have a mover and a seconder to approve the resolution? So I see Councillor Smith will move as in our, yep, okay. Okay.
Also had one more question, if I might.
Yes, sure.
It's not related to the Fort Irwin request specifically, but this is the I think the third consecutive month, could be the fourth, that we've had a request from an association for speed limit signs, anti-speeding signs, and such. And the concern for Rob is, what about road areas that don't have a lake association or a similar formal structure? I'll go back to about a year ago when we had the infrastructure committee. We received correspondence from a resident of Irish Line, where they don't have an association; they just have people that live on the road. And I know from talking to residents on Irish Line, there's quite a speeding on that road. We had a specific request, but from an individual as opposed to an association, saying, could you change the sign from 60 kilometers an hour to 50 kilometers an hour on Irish Line? How does a road like that get the same sort of attention, and follow through that the lake associations or other formal associations can get? In other words, what do I say to the folks on Irish Line? Do you need to organize an association to get action, or can it just be individuals?
Rob, do you want to answer that, or?
I don't know if I have a good answer, quite honestly. And I do remember that request from Irish Line, but at the time, it seems so long ago now, but every time we get a request, we always, we say we should look into that, or we should look at traffic calming. We should look at the speed bylaw. And this is all stuff that has been on my plate for a long time, too long, quite honestly. It boils down to resources. And that's why for this report, I just feel everything's coming to a head. Given the year, it's, 2020 is what it is. But that's why I think we got to go ahead and get somebody from outside to assess our network, and let's get on with it.
Yeah, I think it's in the resolution, and whether we can, when we get the costs associated with that, but to me, I think that was very wise to put that in there, because we should be trying to make decisions based on, again, a road network, not just because somebody complained or somebody's in an association and they have a stronger voice. Okay, so were you able to move the resolution as it stands, John? Yes, so that was Councillor Smith, and a seconder then, please, Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the committee acknowledges this report regarding a request for a 50-kilometer speed limit sign by the Fort Irwin Residents Association, and further that the committee recommend that council deny the request for the installation of a 50-kilometer sign on Haliburton Lake Road in Fort Irwin as a result of this report, and further that the committee recommend to council that a 50-kilometer sign be installed at or near the north intersection of Haliburton Lake Road and the north intersection of Curry Road for the northbound traffic along Haliburton Lake Road. And further that the committee direct staff to engage a traffic engineer to submit a proposal in order to determine appropriate speed limits, traffic calming measures, if any, and corresponding signage requirements on the entire municipal road network. And finally, that the staff return to the committee with costs associated with the proposal from a traffic engineer for consideration and implementation as part of the 2021 municipal budget. All in favor?
Could I ask a question, please?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask Rob, how much more money is it going to cost if you're talking about putting 2 signs up there instead of, say, 4 or 6? Is it a lot of money?
It's not, but as my concern, Walt, is we've talked about it before, is if one's not enough, is 4 enough, is 6 enough, is 10 enough? And if we do it on one road, why not the road beside it? So that's kind of the reason why we have put it off a little bit. But that is a big reason why I want to get somebody in here to assess these roads, because I don't want to flood our shoulders with signage that people may or may not pay attention to. And I don't want to be seen as signing one road every 300 or 400 feet and not doing the one beside it. Because all the roads up there are the same. It's the same traffic, it's the same terrain. But yeah, that's why we have to look at the whole network. We shouldn't be focusing on one section.
Thank you.
Okay, so I did read it and I called for the vote. So all in favor? And that carries. Okay. Snow plow request, Camp Tohi.
Yeah, again, not an uncommon request. A little late in the year though. We generally try and get these requests taken care of in September. It gives our guys a bit of time to take a look at the area, maybe do some minor improvements if need to be, just to have a turnaround ready for the snowplow. Camp Tohi is one of the more unique roads. It's similar to Kenaway Road in that it's generally summer only. We do plow to the top of the hill for access to a communications tower. Beyond that is summer only. However, it is plowed privately for access to those houses in question. To maybe complicate things, I really don't have the answer at this point, it is part of the HCSA Groom Snowmobile Trail. And we did update an agreement with them, and there was some work done about 5 years ago. Up until then, they primarily used the entire road as a base for a trail. Now they did some clearing and they kind of hopscotch on either side of the road. And I'm just not really sure what impact that would have with any agreement we have with them. I just haven't had time to look at it. But I didn't want to commit to plowing a road and maybe creating an issue with the HCSA. So if we defer this till next year, that'll give us plenty of time to get this hammered out.
Okay, that seems like a good recommendation. Anyone want to speak to that? So then I will ask again, mover, seconder, Councillor Smith.
I'm happy to move it and support the recommendation, but I had a question that came to mind when I looked at this, Rob. We get a number of these requests about winter maintenance, and it left me wondering how much of our network of 300, roughly 300 kilometers of roads do we not provide winter maintenance to? How pervasive is this issue?
That I don't know off the top of my head, but I will get that number for you.
All right, I'd appreciate that. Just to be good, I think it'd be good for council to know, because we get these requests, and I guess at one time I thought that it was a pretty rare thing, and now I'm beginning to wonder whether my assumption is correct. Maybe it's 30 or 40 kilometers there. Who knows? How often? Number of situations be appreciated. Thanks.
Okay, so I did mark you down as the mover, Councillor Smith, so I'll take a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Be it resolved that the committee acknowledge this report regarding a request to extend snow plowing along Camp Tohi Road, and further that the committee recommends that council defer any decision to extend snow plowing along Camp Tohi Road until the 2021-2022 winter season. All in favor? Okay, carried then. Oh, look, speeding.
Yeah, we'll stay on the topic of speeding. Just a letter of support for reducing the speed limit on Wigamog, which was discussed, I believe, at last month's meeting. But that would tie in just beautifully with what we proposed 2 reports ago.
Yes, so I think perhaps though if we could at least correspond with them and say that, and just because the timing of our committee, the whole 2 council meetings, just because we requested staff to submit a proposal regarding an engineer, that may not be back, that won't be back. That only gives staff really a week because agendas get up. But if we could just at least report back to the request from Silver Beach that council will be discussing this. That I always like to let people know in case they're not listening in that they're, you know, you just can't expect Rob's report on the engineer in 2 weeks today. Right?
I have a phone call today.
Well, I appreciate it if you do, but it's not an expectation. It's just the way agendas have to get submitted to clerk, etc. It's a fast turnaround. So we acknowledge the letter. Mover, seconder for that? Anyone to move the receipt? Councillor Smith and Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the October 26, 2020 letter from the Silver Beach Board of Directors regarding the speed limit and signage on Wigamog Road. All in favor? And carried, thank you. And landfill attendant services for the coming season, winter.
Good morning. So Watson's General Contracting has been providing landfill attendant services at our landfill site since 2009. They've made a proposal to us, and that's included in the committee package. Staff are recommending a 1-year extension, so January 1st to December 31st, 2021, with a price increase of 2%, resulting in an hourly rate of $20.96.
Okay, pretty straightforward. Councillor Smith?
Thanks. Just for the record, John, you're a relatively new employee here, you know, your name's not quite as common as Smith, but maybe for the public record, it would be appropriate that you confirm that there is no relationship between John Watson, Environment Manager, and the Watson General Contracting that is proposing to provide services.
That is correct. I am not related to any Watson in Haliburton County.
Yes, I knew you were new to our community also, so thank you for that. And then in a second question, do we have confirmation that if council approves this, that the contractor is prepared to do a 1-year agreement as opposed to the 2 years they had proposed?
They are, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good. And good point about the last name. I know it can be, somebody could think something. So it's good to point that out. Any other questions, or we'll take a mover seconder again? No further questions. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kennedy and seconded by Councillor Smith. Be it resolved, the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council approve the landfill attendant services agreement with Watson General Contracting from January 1st to December 31st, 2021 at a price of $20.96 per hour. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, John. And continue with the garbage disposal.
Yes. So as committee and council are aware, starting on January 1st, 2021, the Haliburton landfill will be operating exclusively as a transfer station. And at the September 8th committee of the whole meeting, there was a motion approved that would basically prevent large generators of industrial, commercial, and institutional garbage from using the site simply because we would not be able to have packer trucks or tip trailers empty their garbage into our bins. Garbage would have to be hand bombed into those bins. Garbage disposal has addressed or has presented a concern regarding that operational change. And staff have concerns about Garbet's inquiry, specifically about the precedent setting of a private company operating a private transfer station on Dysart property, on a Dysart landfill site, the perceived preference being given to one private company, some current concerns too that the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks would require an amendment to the environmental compliance, environmental certificate of approval, which can take up to a year to accomplish, and issues regarding liability, costing, and also financial assurances.
Well, there's a lot of concerns there all wrapped up. So questions, comments from councillors? Anybody? Councillor Deputy Mayor Kennedy?
I'm just wondering, John, what would his alternate solution be? He does make a point that most of these companies are less than the 5 yards. Where would he have to take that, like out of the county, or I'm just not sure what his alternatives might be on that.
Yes, ultimately, he would need to transport the garbage he collects to a private transfer station, either in Peterborough or in Bracebridge.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson?
I just want to, from John's comment, so you're saying that all of the contractors that use a Halliburton dump landfill site have to take their waste to Peterborough, would be the closest?
No, this is exclusively for garbage, so it does not include recycling or construction waste, and it's for those over 5 cubic yards per load. There actually are not that many of our contractors that are over 5 cubic yards of garbage per load. It's actually about 5 or 6 of the larger kind of commercial settings that are at that level.
So it doesn't really affect a lot of contractors?
No.
Okay, so I think though our certificate of approval is key, and we can't allow a private system on our public landfill transfer station. Councillor Smith?
Thank you. A question for John, and you know, I'm trying to think about this from the kind of total environmental impact, and I'm a big supporter of the direction of having businesses, you know, pick up their fair share of disposal costs. But you know, the point that they're making here is about volumes of less than 5 yards from a business, and I can see some efficiency, both from an economic and environmental point of view. If somebody like Garbett has got a deal to pick up waste from several businesses, particularly those that are located in close proximity to each other, it's one trip to our landfill site, and let's say it's 30 yards they arrive with, but it's the waste from 10 different businesses. If we found a way, short of them doing this on-site sorting that, you know, creates lots of problems and so forth, is there another approach that might allow them to provide that level of efficiency, and from both an environment and economic point of view? Because the alternative is that they'll make 10 trips, you know, back and forth between that cluster of businesses to our landfill site. And each one, I showed up, I got 3 yards here from business ABC. The next one they come in, I got 4 yards here from business D and F. And, you know, that didn't make sense for anybody, but it was a way of complying with our rules, if you like. So I'm wondering if there's another way, if a counter proposal, if you like, we could go back to somebody like Watson With and the 4 or 5 other contractors that do this type of work that makes sense for everybody.
So first, just a point of clarification, a packer truck would be unable to tip any garbage, regardless of the quantity, into our bins, because they have to actually be hand bombed based on where the placement of the bins is. The other option really is for garbage disposal to apply for their own ECA from the ministry, so that they could run a transfer station on their own property. That would ultimately be something they could do, and that may actually enable them to provide more services to more businesses in the community.
Okay, so they
And
have
as a follow-up, ask, is there any expectation of how long it might take them to get approval for such an ECA? We always hear that getting an ECA approved is almost a centennial project. Does the province do that any quicker for private businesses?
Not particularly, because it's still considered a waste disposal facility, even if it's just a private transfer station.
So it's not a short-term solution either.
No, it would take a bit of time.
Yeah, and they don't have time because our meter stops here come the first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would it be possible for them to show up with a truck that does accommodate many yards, say 20 yards of waste, and confirm to us that that came from 8 different businesses or whatever. And would we accept that? Would that make sense?
They still would not be able to tip their truck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I know, I appreciate you. It's a dilemma, but it's one we've known about for quite some time, and it is a, we've known this was going to be a transfer station for a long time. So we have to let private business work it out their own way. Mallory, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify that it does take a while to get an ECA, but as John spoke with our provincial officer, if we ran the business the way this has been suggested, we would need an amendment and a design operation plan amendment. So it would take us a long time to make it work. So you're right, there is no quick solution, no matter what pathway we go.
Okay, so I have a resolution just to receive the report. And someone want to move that? Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Smith. Be resolved that the Committee of the Whole receives this report as information regarding garbage disposals landfill operations concern. All in favor? Carried. And organic waste management. Go ahead, John.
So at the September 8th council meeting, staff were directed to bring back options regarding better waste management, including organic waste management. So this report is for information, just kind of summarizing a variety of current practices that Dysart is involved with, as well as some research from other jurisdictions in Ontario, some provincial legislation and policy, and then also potential things that Dysart could explore. Basically, we are currently obviously managing organics waste as garbage, so it is being landfilled or transferred to landfill sites. We've had to apply, for the purposes of this report, an estimation that 30 to 50% of the residential garbage would be food waste. So that takes us anywhere between 667 to 1,111 metric tons of food waste that we're managing currently as garbage. Again, it's a rough estimate because we don't actually know the percentage of the garbage that is food waste. We currently have backyard composters and digesters available for sale at the Haliburton landfill site. Our prices are comparable for those 2 devices to other jurisdictions. It is noted that some municipalities subsidize the price further to make it provide more of a financial incentive to residents to be able to purchase the backyard composters or digesters to use them at their homes. Dysart obviously does a lot of promotion education, especially social media, highlighting the different options for composting, including composters and digesters. During Waste Reduction Week, we did a bunch of stuff around food waste reduction and better kind of meal planning to reduce food waste at the source. We're participating in Abbey Gardens research into composting, and they're expecting a final report in spring of 2021. And we're partnering with ULinks on a funding proposal they've submitted to the federal government around backyard composting promotion education relating to climate change. And obviously in the county's climate change mitigation plan, there is a large component around researching and kind of looking at food waste organics. Looking at some of the other jurisdictions in Ontario, the city of Peterborough, for example, is in the process of planning and building its own composting facility. They received funding for that program in February 2020. It expires in February or in 2024. The first kind of 2.5 years of that project is just simply on planning the facility. They're planning to process 27,000 metric tons of organic waste, about 75% food waste and 25% yard waste. They anticipate they will process about half of that from their direct residents, and the remaining capacity will be sold to other jurisdictions. So Dysart could potentially purchase capacity there. That new facility that they are building is going to open in fall of 2023 at a cost of $15 million. The County of Peterborough is kind of unique in that the local municipalities are responsible for garbage disposal, but the county is responsible for blue box and food waste organics. Currently, 5 of the transfer stations accept food waste organics. So residents drop off the food waste in a Moloch, which is basically a large bin that is dug into the earth. It's lined with a watertight tarp that's lifted by a crane truck and then transported to the city's composting facility. Each transfer station has 2 to 5 Molochs, so that each costs about $5,000 each. The county is actually acquiring a consultant to address or explore food waste organics processing and capacity. The county staff do suspect that their consultant ultimately will say they should buy capacity at the city's facility. Simcoe County has been running a food waste organics program curbside since 2008. Currently, they're taking material to Elmira to be composted. They have their own plans to build a facility within their own border. They started that process back in 2014, and as of now, 2020, they're still in the planning approval phase. They're not close to building. Their plan is to process 30,000 metric tons of organics per year and are estimating $25 to $31 million for the capital cost for that facility. Muskoka has been doing curbside collection of organics since 2008 in primarily their urban areas. They do have the ability to drop off organics at four municipal transfer stations, and they collect about 13 metric tons at those transfer sites. So not very much material is actually being dropped off by residents. The food waste is being composted at a composting facility they have at their primary landfill site in Gravenhurst. That site opened a while ago, and it can process about 1,344 tons per year. They are, Muskoka is actually exploring additional capacity and technology, kind of following direction from provincial policy statements that are directing that more advanced technologies start to be used for composting. And finally, in Ottawa Valley, they have a facility that they opened in 2002. It and its recycling facility cost $13 million to build. The facility is kind of running at capacity, and their organics facility is often requiring a lot of maintenance because it is at capacity. One of their communities is drop-off depot only, and they are also using Moloch systems where it's lifted up and then taken to be processed. At the provincial level, there's a policy statement for the food and organic waste framework, and it was just recently updated this fall. It covers many different aspects of food waste organics, but the one thing that's interesting to note is that Dysart's population actually puts us below the threshold for the policy to apply to us. So this policy, there's a lot of great stuff to draw from, but technically does not apply to us due to our population size. In terms of kind of future steps for food waste organics in Dysart, obviously one thing we really need to understand first and foremost is how much food waste is actually in the garbage stream. We're having to make estimations. So one of the ways to do this is a waste composition study. Ideally, you want to do this 4 seasons, and it's basically taking garbage, blue box materials, and auditing it to understand what is actually appearing there. Typically, you're sorting this into 90 different categories to get a sense of what's there. And you want to do 4 seasons because our waste in the summer is different than our waste in our spring in the wintertime. And this is an initiative of the Climate Change Mitigation Plan to do that work. The Haliburton landfill in our ECA, it directly states that 1 year prior to starting collecting organic waste, we need to give the ministry notice. So regardless of when we were to start, we need to give the ministry a year's notice of when that would happen. The last page of the report is kind of like a mind map, if you will, of all the things that we need to consider when we're looking at food waste organics, just to show that there's a lot to think about. Obviously, you could continue with status quo with the composters and digesters, but do you explore enhanced promotion education? Do you subsidize the cost to make it more attractive to residents? If you do a new program, there's lots to consider. Is it mandatory participation, voluntary participation? If it's mandatory, are you giving a bin to every house so they can collect their food waste? If a bin costs $10 and we have 7,000 households, are we willing to spend that expense on bins? What kind of feedstock are we looking at? So residential, commercial, just fruits and vegetables, meat and dairy. Are we including packaging, compostable plastics? A lot of that actually comes out in a provincial mandate to the ECA. If we did our own program on ourselves, are we hauling to external facility like the City of Peterborough, building our own facility, partnering with the other Haliburton local municipalities? There's a lot to explore. And so it's not an easy, quick, fast decision, just because council has a lot of ramifications to explore, whether it be capital operating program. There's a lot that goes into creating an organics program for Dysart.
John, thank you. This is an incredibly detailed report. You put a lot of effort and a lot of research time into this. And I'll open up to the floor for questions, but I just want to thank you for your in-depth report and research. This is fabulous. Questions, comments from councillors? Councillor Smith, go ahead.
Thank you very much. John, I'd first echo the mayor's comments. Very much appreciate the time and effort you've put into this and the thought. It's obviously very deliberate in terms of consideration. One of the things that you're placing a fair bit of emphasis on is the existing program of encouraging people to do composting at home and the availability of both composters and digesters from the Haliburton landfill site, and in fact, those are made available at a pretty attractive price. It left me wondering, first off, when I talk to people about that, the first thing they say is, well, that'll attract bears. And I always say, well, I've been doing this for years, even before you had subsidized composters available. And, I've never had a bear. Now, maybe the bears in my neighborhood know there's a bigger bear that lives in the cottage. I don't know. But somehow we've got to address that concern. And I wondered about potentially increasing the awareness of the availability of these composters and digesters, and the fact that bears need not be an issue if you are careful about what you put in these devices. In other words, table scraps don't go in your composter. It's the top of your pineapple, it's the skin of the pineapple, it's the peeling from the grapefruit, things that bears aren't interested in. Could we do a tax bill insert? We'll have new tax bills going out in February, whenever it is they go. We often have a little insert in there that's pretty inexpensive to print. It's not a big bulky thing. It's just a little note that really says, hey, we really encourage you to do composting. By the way, you can get these things here. And by the way, if you do it this way, you don't need to worry about wildlife, bears or otherwise. So first, maybe you can answer that, and then I have a second question. Thanks.
Yeah, I think enhanced promotion education around the use of composters and digesters would be key. I think also being able to better articulate to residents why a digester is a very good option, because it is kind of buried partially into the ground, and that can mitigate bears even more so than the composters will. I think including information in the tax bills that go out in the winter or spring would be a great idea as well.
Okay, thank you. Just the last point in your report here, is drawn from the county's climate change mitigation plan. Explore the potential of organics diversion for yard waste, food waste, blah, 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 community sites. To some degree, you've outlined that in your colorful flow chart there. But I'm wondering if it might be reasonable. This is a pressing concern to many in our community. They look at the food waste at our landfill sites, and it really upsets people who are concerned about climate change and look at the at the impact of that being in our garbage in terms of the production of methane gas, as opposed to the alternatives of turning that organic waste into a useful product that could actually be good for our community. And if we could establish a regular checkpoint where you come back, it could be once a quarter, like every 3 months or whatever, and report to council on the exploration activity, the progress that's been made in terms of addressing this issue. I know from my own experience in the world that when you have a need to kind of come back regularly, it forces you to devote a certain portion of your time to dealing with the problem, trying to find solutions, and otherwise, there's sort of nothing happening until somebody again says, well, where's the next report on organic waste? And then there's a flurry of activity trying to get something created. So could a quarterly, as an example, a checkpoint on progress be an effective vehicle to ensure that we keep this moving forward and our exploration is really productive, if you like?
Yeah, I mean, if committee or council is wanting a consistent kind of check-in, that's definitely something staff can do.
Councillor McKechnie?
John, I'm just wondering if you are in touch with anybody, or do you have any talk with any of your people that you consult with in regard to incinerating garbage? I mean, I just don't understand why nobody talks about it. I mean, it's garbage is not a problem. It's not going away. It just totally blows my mind. And we're talking about climate change. I mean, Europe's been doing it for what? I don't know, exaggerated, say 50 years, 100 years. I don't know. Like, what are we thinking here in Canada? Nobody talks about it except some old broken down hockey player. Haliburton. I mean, what is going on?
Incineration obviously has been around for quite some time. There is a lot of public concern around the air quality from incinerators. And Europe has been using it for an extensive, long amount of time, and have definitely demonstrated that with the scrubbers that they have, they are able to really minimize those impacts. There are basically 2 incinerators operating in the GTA at the moment. Durham, York has their facility. It is a gigantic facility. It's pretty amazing to see. They even have like a scoreboard outside, so you can see real time the emissions that are being tracked. It is extremely expensive to build an energy from waste facility. There is a long, lengthy approval process to do that, and you need to have the amount of garbage to kind of make it economically worthwhile. And you may also need a connection to natural gas to be able to help fuel the site. In addition, you actually do want to have the food waste organics out of the garbage, because those are wet items, and that doesn't really lend itself to incineration. And definitely in Europe and in Durham, York, we see that, where they're running extensive food waste organics programs, kind of in conjunction with incineration.
Yeah, so the idea.
I just like to comment. I don't care what it costs. Our process we're doing right now, the way we're getting rid of our garbage, isn't working. You're talking about polluting the air. What about these diesel trucks running up and down the 401 nonstop? I mean, I can go on and on. I know it's not on the agenda, so I'll shut up. But I just don't understand, John. This is an important issue, and nobody talks about it. But other places are doing, and the ones in Toronto, the Durham one especially, because Rob and I've sat in Rob's office a few times, and we see what the amount of pollution is going in the air, and it's practically nothing. And I just don't understand why we're not doing it, because it's the States are doing more of it. Europe, of course, is. Thank you.
I think John, though, Walt made a very good point, which is because we're actually, talking about just the organic waste report, but that either way, if there was an ability for our garbage from the Haliburton landfill to not go down to Chatham or wherever it's going, but to go to an incineration plant. Either way, we should be extracting our organic waste out of that. We need to somehow separate that. And I'm very interested in the Peterborough model so this would also be like, we'd have basically a transfer station. I would go and take my recycling, my other stuff to the beer store, glass, and then you'd have your compost bag. So we don't even necessarily have to do containers. People do, there are compostable plastics that I have one that's from a company, and you can buy the little plastic liners for it. And there's a compostable plastic. So, I could just chuck that in another bin, and that bin could then get transferred to this Peterborough site. So, and you're saying that we would need to, even if we started to entertain that, first of all, we have to give the province a minimum of 1 year. It goes back to our certificate of approval. Councillor Smith made a great point. It's time to enhance the promotion of what we do offer right now, that's for sure. And we can discuss a tax bill insert in general. So, yeah, Councillor McKechnie, one more comment, and then we'll.
Yeah, like John said about they're extremely costly. Well, I've got a very, very good friend of mine who knows a heck of a lot about incinerators, and he says you can build them at different sizes. I'm not saying Haliburton County is going to have one, but here we're talking about, in Peterborough doing this, and Simcoe and all this. I mean, why aren't they also including in this consulting package they're putting together about organic waste, talk about, incinerating it? I mean, incinerating the garbage after it's been processed. I mean, I just can't understand why, but oh no, we're just going to truck it down the road. Thank you.
Okay. So again, John, thank you. One more question, Councillor Smith. We're going to do this resolution, and we'll take a break, just so councillors know. We'll take a 15-minute break after this. Go ahead, Councillor Smith.
Well, it's not another question. I'm going to just make a suggestion here. I'm happy to move receipt of this report as per the recommendation here. But based on John's response to our earlier question, I'd like to add a statement, and that the environment manager be requested to report back to council on a quarterly basis in terms of progress on exploring alternatives solutions for the handling of organic waste.
And John Watson, do you think that's fair? You're probably already working on it behind the scenes anyway, but it's a reporting back to council just to keep it on the table.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mallory, maybe you can incorporate that into the minutes.
Yep, I will.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Smith. So do I have a seconder for that? A seconder, please? Anyone? Next, Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole receive this food waste organics composting report as information. All in favor? And that's carried. And the further direction is going to be written in the minutes. So it's not in the resolution, but it's in the minutes. So that was carried. I'm going to propose a 15-minute break. 10:42. This whatever 15 minutes is from that. Just gives a 10-minute break awfully short for administrators to power down. So we'll take a little break, and we'll come back to Parks and Rec and continue our meeting. Okay, and we're back from our recess. Thank you, everyone, and we will continue on in order on the agenda. So next up we have is our Parks and Rec Department. And so I believe we're bringing in Andrea Mueller. We'll just be coming in to do with the electronic sign policy. Hi, Andrea.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so I'll let you speak to your report.
Okay, so I have a revised version of the electronic sign policy. And with it, I tried to keep it concise and short. We don't want it to be pages upon pages. You will notice that the part about the annual advertising package has been taken out for now. That was upon some further discussion. Some of the changes are, it says when space allows, community groups, organizations, businesses are welcome to purchase advertising space on the electronic sign. So it's not saying you have to be nonprofit or you have to be a registered charity. Businesses are able to purchase advertising space provided they meet the submission guidelines. So within the submission guidelines, it says it needs to have a clear connection to the municipality of Dysart et al. And the broader community. So something like Hike Haliburton could still be advertised because it's part of the broader community. Be a community-based event, program, or message. There's some talk about what would be accepted format for submission. We have learned between the last committee of the whole meeting and this one, or between the September one and this one, we've learned that white backgrounds do not work well for the sign. So these are things that I'm happy happened during that time frame because now we know. So those are kind of some of the guidelines that are put in there. The big one is some of the things that we will not allow are announcements, events that promote a commercial interest or commercial cause, i.e. a spend your points event or sale on merchandise. So we're trying to keep it community-based. That way it's pretty clear on what can or can't be advertised. So with this policy, I didn't get into the pricing. The pricing comes in the arena fees update. So are there questions about this?
I'll open it up to questions from the floor, and just keep in mind, this is a new sign and a new policy. And if this time next year it didn't work, we want to make some adjustments and changes. Absolutely. That's what we do. It's a great first start. And so, you know, that we have the ability to change as needed. And as I said, it's new and we'll likely not get it right the first time. So I'll open it up for questions or comments from councillors on the policy. So no comments means, oh, Councillor Deputy Mayor Kennedy, go ahead.
I want to thank Andrea and other staff members for the work they've done on this. I think they've captured what we're trying to do here, and I'll move that we accept the report as tabled.
Excellent. So that's for the policy. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Smith, a question then? Or
Well, I'm happy to second it, but I did have some questions, if I might.
yes.
I actually have 3 questions related to terminology that's in here.
Okay.
And so, Andrea, the policy says that we will not allow the following types of event to be submitted. You say announcements for events that promote a commercial interest or commercial cause. That sounds like every business in Haliburton. You know, they would say they're all commercial businesses. You know, their commercial interest is, you know, selling stuff, goods or services, and making money, making a profit. So how does a business, when you say you will not allow that, how does a business promote something on our website or on our sign rather?
So a business, when it's a community-based event, program, or message. So for instance, I'll pick on the BIA when they have their ladies shopping night. That's a community-based event. So that's something where they're advertising the whole downtown core. Yes, it's commercial, but it's commercial in a community sense. It's not an individual store advertising a sale that they're having within their premise. Something like I'm just trying to come up with some examples. I can't think of the name right now. The
Andrea
Summer Festival. That's a community thing again. Even though it's a business, it's a community-based type event.
So we have a local car dealer that sells cars and trucks, but they also do a community event at Easter, and it's an Easter egg hunt. It is not selling their vehicles. I think that's the difference. So that business could advertise their community event for an Easter egg hunt, but they wouldn't advertise financing 1.9% or I don't know what, that type of, it's not a commercial ad.
Okay. So what's the rationale for that? You know, again, we spent $20,000 to buy this sign with the view that we were going to be able to sell advertising and recover our money. And we're prohibiting a lot of what I'll call income generation. Why do we want to do that?
It's a lot to manage. Like if every week we're getting businesses wanting to have a sale advertisement or something, that's a lot more than the staff time we have to allot to it. Whereas if we're advertising community events, even like the sponsored public skating, things like that, they're not as frequent. They still will come around and we will generate revenue. I did put together a forecast of possible projected revenues, which I was going to discuss with the next part, but I might as well discuss it now. In a regular year, a non-COVID year, I would say we would bring in, and this is, you know, trying to look at what groups you generally advertise on the community events boards, what groups take out advertisements in the newspaper, and I definitely didn't capture all of them, but given to how many public skating sponsors we have in a year, in a normal year, we'd be low around $5,000 a year, and then up from there. During a COVID year, we'd be looking at, sorry, just a second here. In a COVID year, if we were to have all the public skates sponsored, and then the few other events, well, sorry, even if we didn't have all the public skating sponsored, we'd be at a minimum of 2,000, I would say, but probably more than that, because there's a lot of people looking, they do want to use the space, they would like to advertise, and if the next package with this public skating gets accepted or approved, then we would be looking at, if all 10 sessions at Christmas were sponsored, that's a $2,300 right there. That's and normally our public skatings are sponsored for Christmas, Family Day, March break, and we come up with a campaign to get those going. That's just one example. That doesn't include, you know, the community events like the Easter egg hunts, Hike Haliburton, Halloween things, shopping nights, those sort of things, which would all then minimum $100 per event, depending how long they advertise for.
A couple more questions, if I might.
Yep, two more. Go ahead.
So on the next point there, you say political or nonpartisan based events from non-elected officials. So you're speaking to, I guess there's 6 of us here today, 6 elected officials who are members of council. Does that mean that we're allowed to put up political or partisan based events in terms of promoting them, but nobody else is, other than our MP and MPP, that sort of thing? I'm surprised that you've got the non-elected officials. Political or partisan events for political causes might be a more appropriate phrasing, I guess, is where I was coming from.
I can change that.
Is there consensus? I think that's correct. It shouldn't just be it's not political messages instead. Okay, good, thank you.
And then the third point on this list, it says no solicitations. You know, solicitations are considered, you know, activities that are asking for money. All right. If somebody knocks on my door and says they want $100 for the hospital, that's a solicitation. I would have thought if, you know, Canoe FM, for example, or Triple HS or the Land Trust, you know, or Abbey Gardens, or any one of a whole host of, you know, charitable organizations in our community are doing some type of campaign, whether it's a radiothon for Triple HS or, you know, whether it's Canoe FM, you know, raising money. If they want to promote that on our sign, we're saying that wouldn't be permitted based on no solicitations. Is that really what you intended?
No, that is not what I intended. So we can remove that. It was more, yeah, no, it wasn't to do with those with the examples that you provided, because the organizations probably do want to have some sort of promotion, especially when they're doing the radiothons or the events for Triple HS. So.
And that would fall under the community events, no? Like that would still be a community program or event if it's benefiting the community.
It's not an event. It's not an event. It is just a solicitation. So perhaps that we actually just take that out of there because, you know,
Unless you've got some other type of solicitation in mind you're trying to prohibit here, I don't know what the example is that this eliminates other than those kinds of things that I just referenced.
Councillor Donaldson wanted to speak to this.
Yeah, just a quick question on, so similar to the IBA would be the Algonquin Gateway Business Association over here. So you're saying that they would be allowed to do something. I mean, if they have the Christmas, well, normally they have the Christmas event, that would be something that would be considered as a good thing to have on there. Okay.
Yeah. And back to the solicitations, I think before there was something to do with religious events, and that might be in the submission guidelines. But we can take off the no solicitations just to make it clear and just keep with the two other points.
Councillor Smith?
Just one other thought that comes to mind based on Councillor Donaldson's comment. You know, you mentioned the Curry Chevrolet's Easter egg hunt. You mentioned Midnight Madness, I think, in your comments. You know, what about something like, you know, Shoppers Drug Mart has a ladies' night. It's not for all of downtown, but they sponsor a you know, some type of ladies' night. Would that be permitted?
I would interpret that as to know it's an individual store, so it goes back to the commercial enterprise. And I don't think we're going to get that. As I said, Councillor Smith, we'll adopt a policy that will hopefully bring in some money. Let's hope also not just that, but it is promoting these community events that people want to, who are organizing them, that want to get that information out. And, you know, we're in COVID, so it's strange. We had 0 community events this summer, and normally every single weekend, just in Head Lake Park alone, there's something happening. So I think that we should just try this policy for a year, and we will adapt as needed. Deputy Mayor Kennedy wants to speak, so go ahead.
Yeah, I reiterate, reinforce what you're saying too. I think this first year, it's a trial year. If something unique comes up, I think that staff could discuss it and make a decision based on, I think they know the flavor we want to promote with this sign. So I think this first year, let's just get something underway and we'll work towards perfection as we go along.
I'll let Andrea answer that and then Councillor Smith comment.
Something that I will do too is keep track of all the signs, obviously the ones that have purchased ads that fall within the guidelines, but anybody who maybe puts in a request that doesn't fall within the guidelines. So we have an idea of how many requests are coming in that, excuse me, might not work with these guidelines. So we can review that later.
That's great to track that. Okay, Councillor Smith?
You know, my questions or comments are not meant to be difficult. I'm trying to ascertain you know, what is permitted, what's not permitted, and I appreciate some of the changes that have just been made as a result of raising examples, and I think it's better that we you know, raise the examples in this forum and reach a consensus as opposed to what we intend, as opposed to businesses showing up and saying, well, look, I read the public document and it says your policy, and you know, why aren't I allowed to do it? Or why was so-and-so permitted, because that shouldn't be there given your policy. So as simple as that. You know, we should collectively be trying to make this thing as effective as possible.
Let's hope it's popular, and let's hope we're all getting vaccinations by next May or June, and we can have some events in the park and we can get a little bit back to normal. Let's keep our fingers crossed. So I did get a mover, which was Deputy Mayor Kennedy, and Councillor Smith, you said you'd second. So I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole acknowledges receipt of the November 4th, 2020 electronic sign policy And further, that the committee of the whole recommends that the electronic sign policy be brought forward to the next council meeting for approval as amended, I'll say, because we've just changed that, okay? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, dokie, and then to the fee bylaw, which will dictate hopefully some of this revenue.
Yes. So the fee bylaw, I have made some changes to that as well. And I just want to point out that the ICE rental fees will be reviewed in early 2021. So we're not looking at the ICE rental rates at the moment. As I mentioned before too, we were supposed to review those with our neighboring communities and try and come up with something that would work across the board. So that will be early in 2021, but for the time being, we don't have a public skating sponsorship package. In the past, they've just paid whatever the rate is. So if it's a daytime public skating sponsorship on a weekday, it's $75 an hour. If it's a weekend, it's $110 an hour. So what I'm proposing is that we actually have a public skating sponsorship package. Many arenas do have that. And with our package, of course, would come advertising on the electronic sign. So in the winter, there's two different packages. There's a weekday package and a weekend holiday March break package. So the one would be $135 an hour. So that extra money helps to cover the cost of the advertising on the sign saying, so-and-so is sponsoring the public skate from, 1 to 2:30 on December 24th or however, sorry, I shouldn't choose December 24th. That's a bad day. On December 10th. And there's that example. The $200 an hour would be for Christmas break, March break, the evenings, and weekends during the winter. So again, same thing. If somebody's sponsoring a public skate on December 24th, their business is advertised the week leading up to it. So Wednesdays or December 24th, public skate sponsored by, and it would have their name and it would show up on the sign. In the summer, the price would be static because we only have one rate for summer ice rentals, which is $200 an hour if it's an outside group other than minor hockey. So the rental rate would be $290 for the skate. And again, that would include the ice package. And then if there's a group looking to advertise a community event program or registration, it's $100 per week. And I felt that was reasonable given how much it is to advertise in the papers or with radio. So this is something where they could advertise for 2 weeks. Something else we put into place is that if space allows, they can maybe advertise more than a 2 weeks period, but it's a 2-week block depending on the number of advertisements we get.
Okay, so I'm having a little bit of looking at my screen. So if I don't, the screen's lagging a bit, the internet is a little choppy, but it keeps going. So if I don't see your hand, then feel free to speak up, but I will ask if there's any questions or comments from councillors onto the fee bylaw. So I think that we've talked about, I don't see any hands, and if you want to speak up, go ahead. Okay, so again, thank you for your comments, and that we'll review the ICE fees going forward in the new year. Okay, so then we would need a mover seconder to receive. Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the draft Arena Fees Bylaw 2020 for review and comment. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You as well. It's gorgeous out there. It's hard to believe.
November.
Hard to believe it's November. So next up, we have the museum report. Kate to join us. Good morning.
Hello, how are you doing?
Great. I see you're outside.
Yes, well, as Andrew was just saying, I mean, when the weather's like this, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so we have your report, if you want to highlight anything there or things that aren't there.
Well, just in a general way to say that it has continued to be a busy autumn around the museum and around Glebe Park. We're definitely seeing more people using Glebe Park just because people are wanting to get out and about. And I think that we're going to see a busy winter because of that. We're going to be keeping some of the content that we're offering online just because with COVID case numbers going up, but we're going to be looking for all kinds of ways that we can connect with people who are coming to the area throughout the winter months in person and online. So it'll just be that that balance between the two. But no, things are all good, and yeah, we're just carrying on.
Okay, thank you, Kate. And I know that we have often rented out particularly the upstairs main part of the museum for different groups for uses. And I know that with COVID, but it's still a large space and people are able to be distant and safe. Are you seeing bookings coming back now?
We're just starting. Starting to have those conversations with different groups. In terms of the space, it is a large space, the upstairs gallery, but once you factor in having to keep people 2 meters apart, it actually doesn't take much to fill the space. I mean, really, we're looking at a capacity of maybe about 15 people maximum. So yeah, it's just groups will need to adapt, but we're certainly open to groups starting to come back, and we can certainly make that work for smaller groups.
Okay, that's good to know. Any questions for Kate? Comments on her report? Okay, thank you. I need a mover and seconder to receive. Councillor Wood Roberts, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the Haliburton Highlands Museum report. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too as well. We'll move into building and bylaw, which will bring Carl in, I believe, and Robert, both. The building permit report is there, and it continues to amaze me. But good morning, Carl.
Good morning.
Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
Listening, I just said the building report continues to amaze me to be in October at 448 permits. That's a lot of permits for a municipality our size. So I don't know if you want to comment on that or.
I guess there's nothing really surprising about the building permit report. I just wanted to update that we did hire a new building inspector, and we're beginning the weeks and weeks of training courses and exams and mentoring that's going to take for them to get out on their own. We're also backfilling the permit clerk position, which closes this Friday. So any interest in applying for the permit clerk position, it's now open to apply.
Good, and it was nice that somebody was able to move within the organization and further their career that way. So, no, any comments on the building permit report or no? Okay, so motion to receive, please. Mover, Councillor Wood Roberts, Councillor Smith. Be resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the October 2020 building permit report. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And then we'll move into the bylaw department report from Robert. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Just it's a pretty light report this month. Parking revenue grossed $1,638 this month. I'm still seeing that people are just not paying for the meter, still thinking that they are free during COVID-19. We've had 30 tickets issued for parking, sent about 7 of them notice of impending convictions, And 2 to date have gone to provincial offense courts for not paying their tickets. Total fines for last month were $129 collected. No parking complaints were filed last month. The medical center gate, we've started issuing coupons for the COVID-19 assessment center. So when a client has to go in for a test, they will enter through our gates, grabbing a ticket and giving that to the nurses in the assessment center, and then they will provide a coupon to get out the exit gate. And we're working with the paramedics to give those tickets as they give me, for an example, 100 tickets, I give them 100 coupons back. I believe this is in an agreement that we've had with them. The gate revenue that last month was $2,527. No new property standards were filed last month. We had a new zoning complaint that came in. At the request of council from last month, we've only received 4 dock complaints to date this year. Not very many were received. No encroachment complaints were filed. Noise complaints, nothing there. Sign bylaw and licensing, there was nothing there. For applications, business licensing, nothing there as well. No new health and safety complaints have been filed with myself, and EMCPA enforcement for the reopening of Ontario Act. We haven't had any calls, still haven't had any calls on that. And we are still emailing the Attorney General for letting them know that we haven't received any call for their data tracking on that. If there's any questions or anything, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, we'll open it up to the floor for questions. I'll just kick it off by talking about parking on the main street. We usually get a request from the BIA to not charge for the shopping season. It's usually beginning November 11th. So was any request received this year?
I didn't receive any requests. My understanding was that we do that. We shut them down November the 11th to try to draw people in for parking, and I actually completed that this morning.
Excellent. Okay,
It took me a couple of hours to close down the meters.
So we don't have to get an annual request. I see Councillor Wood Roberts, maybe you want to speak to that.
No, just the BIA 100% appreciates that, because, you know, town it is hurting, even though there's more people around. Some days you can't get a parking spot, but they are just starting their buy-in and win program. So we're really hoping to encourage people to buy close by and shop local. So the BIA certainly appreciates Dysart's contribution to that.
Great. And when does it usually go back in effect?
My understanding would be about the second week of January.
Okay. Okay, great. And I appreciate your work on getting those tickets to the assessment center. We are still working on that agreement. It's not been signed, but anyway. Any other comments for Robert? Questions? No? Okay, so motion to receive. Councillor Wood Roberts and Councillor Donaldson. Be resolved that the Committee of Whole acknowledges the receipt of the October bylaw department update. All in favor? And carried. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And next we have some reports in finance. So Barbara's already there. So we'll just get you to unmute, Barbara, and you can go on to your revenue and expenditure report.
Okay, yes, good morning. So we have here the revenue and expenditure report as of October 31st. Nothing really new from the last month. We're still watching some of the revenue lines that are down due to COVID, namely in the arena there and our medical center. I would be happy to answer any questions if council had any questions.
Any questions to Barbara on revenue and expenditure? Councillor Smith, go ahead.
Thank you. Barbara, you didn't mention administration revenue or expenses. Administration revenue, you're projecting to be about $48,000 under budget for the year, and expenses are about $15,000 over budget for the year. I was assuming that was related to COVID, given you're not during early in the year, we didn't charge interest on overdue tax payments.
So yes, that would be one of the components. We also have some projects that are ongoing in the administration area, and we're waiting to wrap those up to complete the final funding, which will increase the revenue line there.
Thank you.
Thank you. And when we get into that first budget meeting in December, we can probably have more detail about, first of all, how COVID affected us and where we can draw from the provincial funds, what's eligible for that. And so there'll be quite a lot of conversation happening at that time. So if there's no further questions, I will ask for a mover and seconder for this report. Councillor McKechnie and Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Be resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the revenue and expenditure report at October 31st, 2020 with the 2020 forecast analysis. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Barbara, on that one. And go ahead.
Sewage reading is still trending down, probably looking at about 20% lower revenue over last year, and roughly comparing that to the original budget could potentially be about a $20,000 loss in revenue.
Okay. Something we've been anticipating, but nothing we can do about. Anything about, I should say. So we'll just motion to receive unless there's a question. Okay. Is a question or move?
I can do both. Just a question on the shortfall, Barb. Would that be a COVID eligible expense then as we start to wrap up 2020?
Yeah, and that will be something that we will look at. Obviously, you know, some of the metered users are schools, and there's been, you know, not as much usage there as there typically is due to COVID.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll also move that.
Yes, thank you. And a seconder then. Councillor Wood Roberts. Be resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the October 2020 metered sewage readings report. All in favor? Carried. Great. Tax adjustments?
Yes, so Section 357 tax adjustments, total write-offs for the month is $1,265, of which $556 is the municipal portion.
Okay, we see these every so often. So I need mover seconder to receive. Councillor Smith, Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council authorize tax adjustments for applications made under Section 357 of the Municipal Act 2001, amended as follows, and the amounts and the are there. All in favor? And that's carried. Move on to our check summary.
Check summary for October, total disbursements is $1,154,764, broken out between $857,000 for vendor payments and $297,000 for payroll.
Okay, fairly standard. So mover and seconder to receive the check summary. Anyone? Councillor Donaldson, Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the October 2020 check summary. All in favor? And that's carried. And lastly, the lease agreement with the volunteer dental outreach.
Yes, so this is a lease agreement renewal, another 5-year term with the volunteer dental outreach. Basically, Schedule A, illustrating the annual increase of the rent is considering a 2% CPI year over year.
Any questions on the lease agreement? Straightforward, other than we've changed to not have flat rate for the full 5 years. So, and that's consistent with all our lease agreements now. So I'll move her for that, please. Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the lease agreement renewal with the volunteer dental outreach for the Haliburton County. Sorry, didn't read that right. For the lease agreement renewal for the volunteer dental outreach for Haliburton County for a 5-year period, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that a bylaw to authorize the execution of the lease agreement be brought forward to the November 24th regular meeting of Council for adoption. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Barbara. I know you're staying in with us. And so next we're going to bring Mike March, the Director of IT at the county, to talk about the 3 different policies. And hello, Mike. Welcome to Dysart.
Good morning, Mayor Roberts and members of council. So I have 3 reports and 3 policies in front of council for your consideration today. So I'll discuss the first one. It is the a draft revision to your IT policy. What we've actually done is we've taken your single information technology policy and split it into 3. And this one here is the IT acceptable usage policy. It's a much needed update to your IT policy, which was last updated, I believe, in 2012. I've included a list of the main changes in the report. I've attached as Schedule A the draft policy. Just wondering if council would want me to go through section by section, or would you just want to feel free to ask me any questions and I can answer anything that you may want to know.
I think we don't need to go through line by line. It was included, and I believe that, you know, that there may be some questions from the floor, so that we can jump all over. But and I know there was some questions asked earlier for clarification that were directed to Tamara and Councillor Smith. So I think they were answered. So Councillor Smith, did you want to ask?
Well, if I make a comment first, Mike, I thought that you know, all 3 of these policies are frankly pretty well written, and you know, and consistent with the you know, what I'll call the general industry approach to these topics that are you know, frankly extremely sensitive because of the problems the bad guys out there can cause, if you like, if we don't have discipline in terms of how we use technology. There were a couple of things I'd asked about that. One, I was on the IT acceptable usage policy. You have on the unacceptable uses include, but are not limited to, remote access of the Dysart et al. Network with non-Dysart et al. Issued devices. Mm-hmm. Now, the Dysart et al. Network in your defined terms is a pretty broad use. It's basically all of our computer systems. And although later in this same policy, you say that access to our email service with non-Dysart owned assets, in other words, with my own phone or laptop, is permitted, for consistency, if you like, within the policy, I think you know, where you have that statement, you ought to have it inserted there, a statement except for email.
Yes, I do understand that concern that was addressed, and yeah, it wasn't my intention to eliminate access to webmail from people such as municipal councillors, who that's for the most of you, that's how you access your emails through your personal devices. So I'm more than happy to put in an exception to allow or put in an exception to further clarify that.
Terrific, thank you. And the second point, I think it's, as you note, and in fact, on one of the policies, you've got a statement about biennial updates or reviews in terms of education. But getting in place a process by which employees regularly review and certify that they have reviewed these policies is important. As you note, it's been many years since they were last updated. And, your team does a great job in terms of bringing to our attention the risks of phishing and other activities the bad guys use to try and exploit users who aren't careful. But getting in place a process by which there's an annual or biannual review of all of the policies where the users are, gee, I better take a few minutes and revisit that security policy, for example, because I haven't looked at it in the past year or so. Be, I think, very worthwhile.
And for our part, even though the IT policy hasn't been updated since 2012, there's been many changes and practices and things that we've implemented. But yes, in the past, we haven't been the greatest at getting policies updated in a timely fashion. I'm hoping to, or this is part of that initiative to get that corrected. And on my part, I'm planning on looking at these policies each year. And then if there's anything major that needs to be added, then bringing it forth to each of the municipal councils for their review. And then in terms of your other suggestion about just having staff review each policy and then signing off, regardless of if anything's been changed or not, I can work with your CAO to see how we can implement that.
Great. Okay, thanks. And again, I'd emphasize I think that you and your team are doing a great job with not only the policy side of it, but the day-to-day activities in terms of alerting people to the risks that keep coming up. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
So true, Councillor Smith. I got caught in the last phishing. Just that phone one that looked really legit, and I know I was busy. I had 5 things on the go, and I just went, oh dear. So, and I thought I was careful. So we all need to be reminded. I don't know how we do. When was the last time we did the know before you, whatever it's called?
It's still ongoing.
It's ongoing. So maybe that's an opportunity for, not just because I got caught, so everybody has to suffer, but it's worthwhile to constantly remind us, because the changes and the sophistication to the phishing emails are getting more and more harder to determine, especially maybe on a device. They might look different than on an actual computer. So you know what, just don't open that till you get home and can look. So I don't know, what about training? Tamara, maybe I'll pass that to you for Dysart Council and staff. And to
for the training on these policies, Mallory and I have a meeting set up next week with our fire training officer to get these in a draft form anyway, uploaded into our pre-emergency system. So that it can become part of the annual review for councillors and staff, or biannual, whatever the particular policy requires. And staff will be asked to not only read the policies, but they'll be given a series of questions to demonstrate that they've actually read them and understood them. And that will provide us documentation that that's been done. It'll be there for HR as part of the personnel files. And I think it's going to take some staff time to set up. But again, it'll be a valuable tool once it is.
Yes. Mike, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to answer your question about the security awareness training. We started rolling it out 2019, and as the CAO mentioned, it has been an ongoing process. I know everyone's busy with, IT training isn't necessarily the most exciting things for people outside of the IT industry, but it is necessary. It's one of the best things, and one of the least or most cost-effective things we can do to help protect ratepayer data and our municipal infrastructure. So yeah, and anything that your IT team can do, if you have any suggestions about education, things that are working, things that aren't working, by all means, pass your suggestions along, and we'd be more than willing to get them implemented.
Okay, thank you. So if there's any other questions on this first policy. we would ask for a mover and seconder, I would ask that. Councillor Wood Roberts, and seconded by Councillor Smith. That Dysart, the Committee of the Whole receives for information the November 10th report on the revisions to the Information Technology Policy, and that the Dysart Committee of the Whole recommend to Dysart et al. Council that revisions to the Information Technology Policy include the renaming of the policy to the IT Acceptable Usage Policy be adopted. All in favor? And carried. Thank you. And then we'll on to the next one, which is the mobile device usage.
So if I may, the mobile device usage policy, this is a new policy for Dysart. Many of these provisions were included in the original information technology policy, but as they weren't updated from 2012, they were quite outdated. And mobile device usage has grown quite a bit, that it really needs its own policy. So that's what is before you today. We've same policy basically that we passed at the county back earlier this year. I've included some of the main changes between the provisions that were in the existing IT policy and this policy. And again, more than happy to go through line by line with council, or I can just answer any questions that you may have.
So questions we may have. I think for counselors that rely on their own devices, the BYOD is important to see, but also the whole policies for staff as well. So any questions on this one? Okay, so mover and seconder then. Councillor McKechnie, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Kennedy. The Dysart et al. Committee of the Whole receives for information the November 10th report on the draft mobile device usage policy, and that the Dysart et al. Committee of the Whole recommend to Dysart et al. Council that the recommended mobile device usage policy be adopted. All in favor? And that's carried. We've lost Roberts. And thirdly, the final policy, ICT security. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, this is a new policy as well. Many of these provisions were included in the original IT policy that was passed in 2012. Again, it's a much different world than it was 8 years ago. So we decided to take any of the more techie things out of the IT policy, put it into its own policy, and then expand upon it. We also, a lot of practices that we had in place, we took this opportunity to get it codified in policy, and that's what you have before you today is that draft. Includes some of the main changes in the report, and again, happy to take any questions you may have about any of the components in this new policy.
Okay, we'll open it up to questions, comments. No, great policies, like we said at the beginning, and just a thank you to Mike March and his team at the county for keeping us safe and secure, because that's the new, well, it's not even new, it's been happening for a while, but that's our, a huge risk factor to all of us. So thank you for all that you do. So mover and seconder on this new policy. Councillor Smith, and seconded by Councillor McKechnie. The Dysart et al. Committee of the Whole receives for information the November 10th report on the proposed IT security policy, and that Dysart et al. Committee of the Whole recommend to Dysart et al. Council that the new IT security policy be adopted. All in favor? And that is carried. So that concludes our open session of the Committee of the Whole meeting today. So thank you to those of you watching, and we will now need a resolution to go into closed session. So I'll need a mover by Councillor Wood Roberts and a seconded by anyone, Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole adjourn its regular meeting at 11:48 a.m. to discuss matters pursuant to section 239-2 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, pertaining to a proposed disposition of land by the municipality in the township of Dysart and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. All in favor? And that is carried. And we are now in closed session. We'll just take a minute to change the technology in that. Thank you. Okay, so we're back now in open session, and the only item left is to adjourn our committee of the whole meeting today. So I do need a mover and a seconder, Councillor Donaldson, and seconded by Councillor Deputy Mayor Kennedy, pardon me. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole adjourn its meeting held on November 10th, 2020 at 1:06 p.m. All in favor? And that is carried, and thank you very much. Thank you for staff, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, if not before. Take care, be well, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.